I was somewhere between 8 and 10 when we first got Midnight. We adopted her from an old lady who had a goat farm outside of town. The woman had given us one of her goat kids due to her having an aggressive chihuahua that constantly attacked the poor thing. I don't remember what the goat's original name was, but it was difficult to pronounce, so we changed it to Midnight due to her all-black fur. Midnight was a precious little thing. She was very social and adjusted to her new home surprisingly well. Dad built a fence surrounding our yard so she would have a wide space to run around in, and a little wooden stable where she could sleep for the night. She grew really fast, and reached her full adult size with a full set of horns in just a few months. As an only child, it was nice to have a playmate at home whenever I wasn't at school. Less than a year after we adopted her, we noticed her abdomen had swollen. Dad felt her side, and he said he could feel movement inside. There was no way around it. She was pregnant. But we had no idea how it happened. There were no other goats in the area, at least not to our knowledge. Regardless, we knew we had to prepare for the inevitable birth of Midnight's kid. We made sure her hay bed was nice and comfy, and she had plenty of food and water for when the big day came. One morning when I went in to check in on her, I saw her laying down on her hay bed, her abdomen back to its normal size. That's strange, I thought. Dad said Midnight wouldn't give birth for at least another month. I looked down at her side, expecting to see a baby goat or two sucking on her nipples. Instead I saw, quite frankly, I don't know what. It looked like a small furry ball, about the size of a softball, with black and white coloration like a cow. No limbs, no eyes, no mouth, and no other facial features I could make out. In hindsight, it sort of looked like a Tribble from Star Trek, though I wasn't too familiar with Star Trek at the time. I ran into the house to tell Mom and Dad about what I had seen. I stumbled on my words and they were understandably confused, but Dad agreed to come out and take a look. Upon carefully examining the furry orb laying at Midnight's side, Dad sighed. "Looks like a dud," he said. The kid didn't develop properly, and her body rejected it. As we went in to tell Mom, I couldn't help but feel sad for Midnight. Mom was sad too, but she assured me that failed births are a completely normal thing in all animals, including humans. The three of us agreed to bury what was left of Midnight's kid. Dad grabbed a shovel, I grabbed a plastic bag and Mom put on a pair of gloves. Dad started to dig a hole as me and Mom walked over to Midnight's stable to grab the thing. Mom picked it up with both of her gloved hands, and I held the bag open. Just as Mom was about to drop it in, she stopped. "No," she said quietly. "This isn't right." "What?" I said. Dad walked over to see what the matter was. "It's alive," Mom said. She held the orb out for us to feel. She was right. There was a very distinct heartbeat inside the orb, and we could feel it softly breathing. "But how?" Dad asked, just as confused as Mom. We were interrupted by the sound of Midnight bleeding. We turned to see she had gotten up from her hay bed and was walking over to us, bleeding with a pleading expression as if politely asking us to give her baby, if you could call it that, back. We didn't know what to do, so Mom calmly placed the orb back on the ground. Midnight picked it up in her mouth and carried it back to her hay bed, placing it down in the center and curling up on her side. Days went by, and Midnight never left her stable. She didn't eat or drink, she just lay there in place with that orb by her side. At the same time, her health didn't seem to be deteriorating. She wasn't losing any weight or showing any obvious signs of sickness despite her inactive nature. One day, as my parents were discussing possibly calling a vet to see what was up with Midnight and her baby, they told me to go outside and check on her, so I did so. What I saw upon peeking in the stable caused me to nearly choke on my breath.